Number 10 said, describe a real-world situation that can be modeled by the equation y equals 1 over 20x. Be sure to describe what each variable represents. So whenever I see a fraction, I think of it being as a ratio, and it can be comparing two things. So since I'm a teacher, I think of the ratio being the number of teachers to students, and that makes pretty good sense because our numbers were 1 and my class sizes are about 20. So I'm going to say the ratio of teachers to students is 1, and you can use a colon, to 20. So 1 to 20. So I'm saying for every one teacher, there's 20 kids. So there'd be 2 teachers. That just double the side to be 40, and 3 is 60. They said describe what each variable represents. So let's see. My x would be the number of students. Y would be the number of teachers. Okay, at the bottom it says the variables x and y are related proportionally. Remember that a proportion is an equation that is saying two fractions or two ratios that are equal to each other. So whenever x is 8 and y is 20, find y when x is 42. I'm going to set up a proportion to solve it for y on number 11. So out to the side here, a proportion is made up of 2 equal ratios. So go ahead and do your fraction bars. I'm going to label that I'm going to have x on the top and y on the bottom. If you don't label which one's which, sometimes kids get this other side upside down. Okay, so they said x is 8 whenever y is 20. So there's my first ratio. They went together. Find y, I'm going to put a question mark down here, whenever x is 42. Y'all remember how to solve a proportion? You can cross multiply, so you're going to multiply the ones that are diagonal. So I've got 20 times 42. And then you divide by the number that's left over. So I have not used this 8 yet. So I'm going to divide it by 8 to get 105. And if you wanted to check it, you would just divide each side to make sure you're getting the same ratio. So like 8 divided by 20 is 4/10. So 42 divided by 105 needs to be the same answer to make both sides of that equation be equal, which it checks out. Remember, we can plug a number back into our equation to make sure it checks. Got 0.4 on both sides. Okay. You can pause the video and go ahead and work out number 12. Following this same idea, you're going to be setting up a proportion, but I'm not going to do this one for you. This will be one that I'll grade after you get it turned in. So you can pause it now, work this one, and unpause it whenever you're ready to go on. Okay, so number 13 says the graph shows the relationship between the distance that a snail crawls and the time that it crawls. Use the points on the graph to make the table, okay? So they've got distance, which I can see it's on my x-axis, the horizontal one, so I'm going to label it as x. Time is on the vertical axis, which is always y. Let me go ahead and label those. So they want me to fill in numbers to my table. So I'm going to go grab this first point down here and notice that these intervals, now they're not counting by ones. It goes from 0, there's a naught, and then there's a 10. So I've got to make these numbers be equal. Since there's 2 equal pieces, and it goes from 0 to 10, I can do 10 divided up into 2 equal pieces. That would tell me that it's counting by 5s on the x-axis. On this y-axis, it goes 0, blank, 2, blank, 4. I can tell they're counting by 1s over there. Okay, so always pay attention to what they're counting by if you need to go get a point. Okay, so this first point, I'm going to go get its x number. It's at 10, and then I go up to its y number, and it says 1. So I'm going to fill in that the first point was at 10, 1. My next point, I'm going to grab its x number first, so it goes all the way to the x value of 20, and then it goes up to the number 2. 20 with a 2. You can probably see a pattern, and guess what the other ones are? My third point is all the way to the x value of a 30 and up to 3. 30 and a 3. So I've got 40, and then it goes up to a 4. My last one, it goes all the way over to 50 and up to the number 5. Okay. Write the equation for the relationship and tell what each variable represents. Okay. So, if I need to write an equation, there's these 2 equations that we've been working with. We've got y equals kx, or I've got y equals mx plus b. So I have to figure out which one of these that it is. So I look at my graph and I ask myself, is it proportional or is it non-proportional? And hopefully by now you know which equation goes with which one. So since this graph is starting at the origin, and since this graph is also a straight line, that tells me it is proportional. It is this direct variation equation, y equals kx. That's also telling me it has a constant. So if I started dividing in this table, y divided by x, y divided by x, y divided by x, and so on, it would have a constant, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write y equals, I'm going to leave a little space right here because I'm going to get the constant. Now, I got a couple of different ways I can get the constant. I can divide that y by x to fill in my constant number right here. Or I can go and grab one of these points and divide its y by x. But I'll just do it from the table. So I'm going to take my y number, divide it by my x. I can do it again, 2 divided by 20, and I can do 3 divided by 30. See how I keep on getting a constant answer? So I'm going to write that constant where the letter K was in this original equation. They wanted me to tell what each variable represents, and that's pretty easy to do since the x-axis was labeled as inches for the distance, and the y-axis is labeled as minutes in time. So I just need to write that x is the distance in inches. Y is the time in minutes. On C it says, how long does it take the snail to crawl 85 inches? So they're giving me this number, and I've got this equation. I just have to decide, well, should I plug this 85 inches, should I plug it into the x and work it, like it'd be multiplied right here, side by side, or should I plug it into the y and divide both sides by 0.1? So it's saying that it is inches, and which variable did we say was inches? The x. So over here in the work area, I'm going to write y equals 0.1x. They're giving me a number to go and work in there. So y equals 0.1. Since x stands for inches, I'm plugging in 85. So the answer that you get right here, you need to write on this line. I'm not going to do it for you, but I told you the step you can do to get it. Just behind your answer, since you're solving this for y, and we said that y stood for minutes, you would want to put the abbreviation for minutes.